Today, we're going to check out a new retro Android box game console thing. One that has a unique feature that I've never seen before. Hello, I'm TechDweeb. Welcome. Thanks for clicking on the video. I like things that look like things. For example, this is my can opener. I bought it because it looks just like a can opener. And this is my marker. Not only does it work like a marker, it also looks like a marker. And here's my donut. They kind of messed this one up, actually. It looks more like a bagel than a donut. It tastes like a bagel too. So some of these things are actually kind of hit or miss. Now, as for these Android-based emulation boxes, they come in all shapes and sizes. Some are modern, some are badass, some are flashy, but my favorite ones are the ones that look like old game consoles. I've checked out a couple of these on the channel before. This one here, the good old Super Console X Pro, it looks like an old school Super Famicom, as you can see. And I also reviewed the Super Console X Cube, which looks like a GameCube, obviously. I figure if you're shoving a game console under your TV, why not have it look like a game console? Which brings us to this. This is the Hyperbase FC, and from the packaging we can see that it looks like an old Nintendo. Not like a North American NES, but a Japanese Nintendo Famicom. The company that makes this, Famiglia, oh man, that name just rolls right off the tongue, huh? They reached out and asked if I'd like one to review. And my first thought was to pass because I've already reviewed a few of these things and they're all pretty much the same. They'll use the same chip. But then I saw what this looked like and it actually caught my eye. I love the old school Famicom vibe. And then I learned about a unique feature about this device that I've never seen before. So it made me want to check it out. This is an Android box that uses a hard drive for the game storage, not an SSD, a straight up mechanical SATA hard drive. That's a really interesting idea. And it has a super cool mounting mechanism. I'll show you that in a minute. So I said yes, thinking that it would make an interesting video, but I specifically said I'd only accept the review unit if I could say whatever I wanted about it. So all opinions in this video are my own. You're gonna hear the good stuff and the bad stuff. Is this thing actually any good? Is it as good as a Super Console X? Does it bring anything new to the table? Does it taste more like a donut than my bagel? Well, let's find out together, shall we? In the box, we have nothing. It's empty because I already unboxed it. Fooled you. I'll give you a tour of what came in the box. First of all, we have our word papers. Everyone loves a good word paper. And then we have two cheapo PlayStation style controllers. Wireless controllers with a dongle. They're not bad, these things. I watch lots of reviews of these sorts of devices and everyone's always giving these things a hard time, but honestly, they're fine. I use them, I play games with them, they work fine. It also comes with an HDMI cord, in case you don't have 500 of these already, and onto the console itself. One thing that I like here is that the power cord has a power switch right on it, so you don't have to reach around and fiddle with a tiny little switch on the back of the console. I actually appreciate having this. But we also have a power button and a reset button on the front of the console itself, so you don't need to use the power switch on the cord. Nice to have the option. On the console, we also have two USB ports on the front to put those dongles for the wireless controllers, and you can also use a USB hub if you have extra controllers that you want to use. This thing will accept pretty much any USB controller that you have. You can even use this in an arcade cabinet, like I did with my Super Console X. Did you see that video? Around the back of the device, we have an HDMI port, an Ethernet port, and there is a micro SD card there that holds the system data. This is only an 8GB micro SD card. So where are the games stored? Well, take a look at this. This right here is a hard drive, a 500GB, 2.5-inch SATA hard drive full of games in the shape of a Famicom cartridge. Man, I really want to put my own custom NES cartridge label on this thing. I think I'm gonna do that. Print a sticker or something? Yeah, that's gonna look cool. I'm doing it. So where does that go? Well, it goes right to the top of the console, just like a Famicom. See the open port in the top of the device? Inside there's a full SATA hard drive connection. How cool is that? I've never seen an Android box with a hard drive mounting port built in. And it's not a gimmick here, because this is actually how you put the games drive into your system. I guess it's a little bit of a gimmick. They didn't need to make it look like a Famicom cartridge. But come on, whatever else this device does or doesn't do, whatever its virtues or faults, you have to admit that this feature is cool. It looks like a Famicom, the games are stored on a Famicom cartridge, and you have to insert the cartridge just like a Famicom game. I'm giving them bonus points for creativity there. So many of these Android game boxes look like, well, Android boxes. Call me crazy, but I think my game consoles should look like game consoles. It just feels right, you know? As for the specs, we have a quad-core S905X ARM Cortex-A53 CPU with a Mali 450 GPU. So pretty much the same as a Super Console X Pro or one of those similar devices. We have 2GB of LPDDR3 RAM and 16GB of internal storage. And that's the tour, so all you gotta do is plug this into your TV or monitor and boom, there you go. The console starts up, the controllers work right away, no setup needed, you just start playing. So the build is good, it works, it's easy, no fuss, good stuff. But how does it handle emulation? Well, let's find out. I'm gonna connect this to my display capture so that I don't need to film my screen this whole time. But I'll overlay the capture footage on a photo of a screen to make it feel authentic, just for you. I spoil you, you know that. And here we are. As you can see, it says the total number of games on this thing is 53,000. That's a pretty impressive number, but we'll see what the game lists are like in a bit. I suppose I should start off by scrolling through the systems. You can see how many games are in each system. Pause the video if you want to take a good look. I'm not going to list them all, but it has all the old computer-based systems, all the early era consoles, all the 8-bit era consoles, all the 16-bit era consoles, and the 32-bit era consoles. And then for 3D stuff, we have PS1, Nintendo 64, no Sega Saturn unfortunately, but we do have a bit of Dreamcast and Iomi and Nintendo DS, and some PSP. Overall, I think this is a pretty good list of systems, except for the exclusion of Sega Saturn. Anyways, let's test some games, shall we? How about we try out some low stuff first and then work our way up? So, to kick things off, I fired up some Berserk on the Atari 2600. I actually had this game back in the day. It's not a good game, not by today's standards. That actually applies to most of the 2600 games. There are a few that are still fun, but most of them have aged pretty poorly, to be honest. Same thing with Intellivision. I didn't have an Intellivision, but playing them now, it's not the most fun retro gaming experience you can have. You're not going to enjoy these games unless you grew up playing these games, and then it'll feel nostalgic to play them again now in 2022. I'm sure these games are pretty fun back in the medieval era, but there's lots of other funner games to play on this thing than these super old consoles. Did any of you guys have a vectrex? This console seems super interesting to me. I'd love to see one in person someday. Wow, vector-based gaming, way back in 1982. Oh, that's the year I was born. So the Vectrex is 40 years old. It's an old man, like me. Yeah, all this old stuff is gonna run fine, no problem. Obviously all the Nintendo games are on here, and they're gonna run fine. I actually selected this one at random. It's called Linus Spacehead's Cosmic Crusade. Can I just say that this is my favorite part of these retro emulation devices? Discovering all these old games that I never tried. This Linus Spacehead game is actually kinda neat. It's a point-and-click adventure game, but then it has side-scrolling action segments. What a neat idea for a game. I've never seen those two genres mixed up like this. The game wasn't very fun, I'll admit that, but I'm glad I got to try it. There's a freaking lifetime of gaming here on this box. More retro gaming than you can ever play. That's why I love these things. Game Boy is good here too, obviously. Here's Burger Time, my favorite retro game of all time. Did you see the video I made where I turned my Super Console X into an arcade cabinet? Well, Game Boy is actually my favorite system to play on that thing. You'd think it's a weird combo, playing portable games on the least portable gaming setup possible, but it's a great fit for two reasons. First, you can apply a colorization to the Game Boy games, so since my cabinet is orange, I can make the games orange. Second, the Game Boy games are generally really good to play in shorter game sessions, which is exactly what I like for arcade games too. Also, I'm just a weirdo, so that helps. And there are a bunch of other 8-bit era gaming consoles on this thing. I'm not going to show them off because this video would be 7 hours long, but yeah, you saw the systems list. If there's an old console you want to play, chances are it's on here, and it has every game you could ever want. So, moving along to the next era of game consoles, the 16-bit era, we got our Super NES, which works great, obviously. Super NES is an awesome console to emulate on these boxes just because it was a console with so many great games. Lots of good action games, great racing games, and a ton of games in general, so it's always fun to find new ones. Like this one, Battle Cars. I never played this game. I'm trying it out for the first time here. It's terrible. What a crappy game. I had to play some good old cannon fodder to wash the taste of that out of my mouth. TurboGrafx 16 is a system that I really enjoy emulating. I didn't own one, and there are a ton of great games on this system. Seriously, every time I test it for one of these videos, I always find some new game that I like. Here's this Raiden game. I chose it because I recognize the name. I think I remember hearing it before. It's a top-down shooter, which I love, as you probably already know. After this, I wanted to fire up Devil Crush, but it wasn't in the TurboGrafx 16 list, but there was a separate list for PC Engine, even though these are the same system, and I found it in there. I also had this issue with another system, Mega Drive, I think. I was looking for Sega Genesis. So if the game you want to play isn't in one game list, make sure you check to see if there's another game list that has the same games, it's just called something different. Oh, and I'll show you this. Sometimes I like to apply a shader that make the game look like it's being played on an old CRT. This is the curvature shader, and it looks freaking awesome, but the game loses a bit of performance when I play with this enabled on this device. The barrel distortion filter is the same thing, but without the scan lines effect, and the performance is much better here. I seem to recall my Super Console X having a better performance when these shaders are applied. I didn't test them side by side though, so that might be a figment of my imagination. If I wasn't so lazy, I'd do a side by side comparison, but I am, unfortunately, for you. And then we have our Sega Mega Drive, which is a separate game list from Sega Genesis, which is a little bit annoying that you have to look through two game lists to find your games, especially since they're not actually organized by region. Both lists have US and European and Japanese ROMs in them. Whatever. The Sega Genesis and the Mega Drive are also excellent systems to emulate on these devices. Hundreds of amazing games, and you get them all here. Real quick before we go on to the next section, I'm going to squeeze in Game Boy Advance. It has like the entire GBA library, so you won't be missing out on any of your favorite GBA games. I was chatting with a friend the other day, and he was saying that he doesn't like Game Boy Advance games on the TV. He thinks it's too low definition and the pixels are too big, but I'm the opposite. I love playing Game Boy Advance games on the big screen. Yeah, it has lower resolution than lots of the other retro systems, but Game Boy Advance games in general are very high quality pixel art. And I'm a sucker for good pixel art, so I actually love being able to see the pixels clearly. Also, Game Boy Advance is closer to a widescreen ratio than the old school retro games, so it kind of feels more natural on a TV. And Game Boy Advance is just an amazing system with hundreds of amazing games. Action games, shooters, racing games, role-playing games. If I could only have one retro gaming system to be able to play for the rest of my life, it'd probably be Game Boy Advance. The games are that good. Oh, and Nintendo DS is also on here. DS runs okay. It's using this standalone Drastic emulator, which is the only DS emulator that we have access to here, and it doesn't have a ton of options. For example, I usually prefer to use a hybrid view, where one of the DS screens is nice and big, and the other one's small, but we actually don't have that option here. I've used other Android boxes that did have that option, so it's a bummer that we're stuck with this one emulator that can't display it the way that I like it to. At least we can do side-by-side view. And the stylus control works well with the thumbsticks on the controller, so you can play most DS games and get an enjoyable experience. And there's a ton of DS games on here, almost 4,000 DS games. So if you want to play some DS, you can. Just know that you're going to be stuck with a pretty bare bones emulator. Before we move on to the arcade systems, I'll just show you this here. This is OpenBOR, Open Beats of Rage, which is sort of like Homebrew beat-em-ups. This is a Tekken beat-em-up. You know, I haven't found a single OpenBOR game that I actually like. Maybe you know a few good ones. Let me know in the comments below. But hey, if you like OpenBOR, as far as I can tell, they run perfectly fine here. And they look great. I'll give them that. As for the arcade systems, well, there's lots of great stuff going on here. As far as I could tell from my testing, all the Mame games are from the same ROM set with the proper emulator. So they all worked right out of the box without any tinkering. I've had to mess around with different emulators to get Mame ROMs working on other Android boxes, and I didn't on this one. So that's a big plus right there, that it's configured correctly right out of the box. The performance was solid too. I had no problem playing even some of the harder arcade systems like CPS3. It was running perfectly, full speed, 60 FPS, and it felt great. NeoGeo 2, obviously, no issues whatsoever. However, Dolphin Blue on Atomiswave didn't run great, which I expected. The Atomiswave was an arcade system that uses the same hardware as the Dreamcast, and as you'll see in a bit, the 3D Dreamcast games aren't great on this thing. But the 2D stuff, the less demanding stuff, yeah, that'll run fine. Guilty Gear Isuka, it ran perfect. So the 2D stuff is going to be good to go, as far as I can see. Just keep your expectations in check for the 3D stuff. It's going to be pretty hit or miss. Okay, on to the 3D systems, and this is where things get interesting. And a little disappointing, but not entirely disappointing. First up, Nintendo 64. Right away, straight out of the box, it didn't run perfect. F-Zero isn't a hard game to run, but it's not easy, and it didn't run at full speed right away. I tried all the different emulators and different options I could think of, and eventually I did get it running, but I had to go down to 320 by 240 resolution. And the game did run fine after that. If you're not aware, the Nintendo 64 had two resolution modes, 320 by 240 and 640 by 480. Some of the games were optimized to run at 320 by 240, but some were meant for 640 by 480. F-Zero is one of the 640 by 480 games, so as you can see, some of the text is blurry, and the graphics obviously aren't as sharp as they should be, but it did run fine. So let's give credit where credit's due. However, when we went over to Cruise in USA, that did not run fine. Even at 320 by 240 resolution. And I tried all the settings, there's nothing you can do about it. It's just not going to run at full speed on this device, no matter what you do. So that was a bummer. However, Blast Corps, which is a game that's meant to run at 320 by 240, this actually ran great at 640 by 480. So the moral of the story is that some games will run great at their native resolution, some games will need to be downscaled to lower resolutions, some games can be upscaled to higher resolutions, and occasionally some games won't run well at all. And you're gonna have to tinker around with the majority of them to get them working good. But, to be fair, this is what you have to do on all these S905X chip consoles. It's nothing unique here. They all have about the same performance. If you want Nintendo 64 to work flawlessly, or if you want to upscale it to 1080p or 4K, you'll need a more powerful device. But you can play the majority of Nintendo 64 games on this device if you're okay with lower resolutions. And only you can decide if you're okay with that. As for PlayStation, one thing I was curious about was if the games had music tracks, because lots of these cheap Android emulation devices include only PS1 ROMs with no music track to save space. But we don't have that problem here, because we have a 500GB hard drive, and luckily the games that I tried did have music, so that's a good thing. However, my go-to testing game, Bloody Roar 2, wasn't on here. So maybe they knew that it wouldn't have great performance and left it off? Actually, probably not, because Tekken 3, which has about the same level as performance, this did work. It worked great, actually, at the native PS1 resolution. When I upscaled to 2x resolution, it started getting laggy. And no settings I could tweak would make it playable. You can play at native PS1 resolution, just fine, even the more demanding games. And for those less demanding games, like Crash Bandicoot 3 here, you can upscale them to 2x resolution. I did that here, and it was running at nearly full speed. Tiny bit of stuttering here and there, but it was barely noticeable. So right away, right out of the gate, all the PS1 games will run at lower resolutions, and if you're okay with tinkering a little bit, you can probably get away with upscaling lots of them. Now, as for PSP, well, first of all, we don't have a ton of PSP games on here. I'm pretty sure they pre-selected games that are easier to run. That said, the games that I tried did run. In Crazy Taxi, they had it defaulted to a frame skip of 2, which resulted in a juddery 15 FPS, so I tweaked the settings to get it running a bit better, and locked the FPS at 20 FPS, which is a much smoother experience.
Okay, here we go!
Taking the cable car at the bottom of the hill.
And Ridge Racer, which is not necessarily an easy game to run. It did run fine, with an auto frame skip of 1. And the frame skip wasn't super noticeable, and the game played good. This is all at native PSP resolution, of course. This isn't a high-end 3D emulation device, so think of PSP as like a bonus. Some games will work, they're fun to try, but don't buy it to play PSP or anything. And last but not least, actually, yeah, probably least now that I think of it, the hardest system to emulate that comes on this device is Dreamcast. And honestly, I don't even know why they put Dreamcast on here. It doesn't run well, at least the 3D stuff. Like this game, Soul Calibur. They put it on here, but there's no way to get it running smoothly. There's nothing you can do. No settings. It's just a laggy mess. It runs at a super low resolution. You can't even read the text on the screen there, as you can see. And it's a glitchy, it's stuttery. There's no point in even putting it on here. They could have left Dreamcast off this device and put on Sega Saturn instead. And that would have been much more enjoyable. Those games would have run much better. However, Marvel vs. Capcom 4 did work at full resolution, and it looked amazing actually. Look at that. Smooth gameplay with the 3D background eye king. So I guess I'm being a grump complaining about Dreamcast, because there's obviously some Dreamcast emulation that's technically possible. Just don't expect anything fully 3D to run well. Oh, and someone in my comments had a great idea, and I told him I'd steal it, so that's what I'm doing here. On these emulation devices, to assess the completeness of the ROM library, do a search for Doom, and see if all the systems where it should have Doom actually have Doom, and then you'll know how complete the ROM collection is. So when we do that here, yeah, there's lots of Doom on here. Game Boy Advance, Super Nintendo, Sega 32X, Nintendo 64. That's pretty much every version of Doom that I'd ever want. Actually, while we're here, let's play that 32X one, just for the heck of it. Well, it's not the highest resolution version of Doom that I ever played. This is better than it ran on my first PC, that I actually played through this game on, so I suppose I can't complain too much. Speaking of complaining, I'm not really that upset about the stuff that didn't run here, because that stuff doesn't run on any of these S905X Android boxes, really. I mean, it kind of feels like at this point, new emulation consoles should have updated chips that run stuff better, but I suppose it would cost more than, so, you know, it's a bit of a trade-off. Honestly, the performance is right in line with what I expect from this chip. It's not a monster. You can run all the easier 2D stuff no problem, and even the lower end 3D stuff like PS1 and most of Nintendo 64 will run good, but it's not going to scratch your itch for 3D gaming. If you want Dreamcast or PSP or whatever, but the stuff that it does do well are plenty of reasons to buy something like this, or a Super Console X, or one of the 1001 other Android-based game consoles. You guys know I love these things. I think they're freaking awesome. You don't need a PC, you don't need to know how to do anything. You just buy it, toss it under your TV, and start playing. They're a great entry into this hobby, retro gaming emulation, and they're a great addition to anyone's tech hoard. And even though I have high-end PCs and retro handhelds, I still use these Android emulation devices because they're just so dang easy. But is this one right for you? Well, if you already have an Android box, some Android-based emulation console, then you're not getting anything new here, so this device isn't for you. It has the same performance as the rest of these S905 chip-based Android consoles. It just looks different. It comes with more games, but it's not going to run any of the high-end stuff any better. But if you're new to the hobby, looking for your first Android emulation box, I think this is a fine choice. It offers all the fun retro gaming goodness that you want out of an Android-based retro emulation device. It's all set up, ready to go, and unlike the Super Console X, this one comes with 500 gigabytes worth of games. The Super Console X maxes out at 256 gigabytes. One of the differences between them is the price. They're all different prices, depending on which buyer you get them from. Some come with more storage, some come with less, some are new, some are old, some of them are on sale, some of them will be on sale. So honestly, the main difference between them is the way they look. This is going to be sitting under your TV. What shape do you want it to be? I think my favorite is still the Super Console X Cube, the one that looks like the GameCube, but I really like this original Famicom-inspired aesthetic that we have going on here. It's an interesting object. I love when my retro emulation devices look like the original console, and this is the first one that actually has a game cartridge, so it gets bonus points for me for that. If you're in the market for something like this, I'll include a link to the product page in the description below. And that brings us to the end. Well, what do you think of this thing? Do you think the hard drive in a game cartridge is a cool idea? Or stupid? Do you like the Famicom vibe? Or do you think it's cheesy? I have a feeling most people are either going to love this or hate it. Or do you have a different Android emulation console box thing that you prefer? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're down there, click the thumbs up button if you liked the video, or the thumbs down button if you didn't. Check out my Discord server if you do that sort of thing. Come and chat about computers or retro games, or share some pictures of your cat over there. We have lots of fun. Subscribe so you don't miss any of my videos. I'm TechDweeb. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.